Hello, my name is Doug Dedman. I'm the President and Principal of DBM Systems. Welcome to our S&OP video series. The topic for today's session is a follow-up to our previous video on what S&OP is not. Today, I'm going to cover what S&OP is. You may argue I should have started here, but well, my previous video, I really wanted to debunk some of the myths about S&OP before actually diving into what S&OP is. I'd like to approach this by first starting with a definition of S&OP and then digging into the important nuggets of that definition. Then I'd like to look at where the process is positioned in the planning cycle and what are those critical linkages between the different steps of the planning cycle. And finally, I'd like to wrap up with what you should expect out of the process or the outcomes. Hopefully by the end of this, if you were unsure of what S&OP is or where it fits, you have a good understanding of these key points. So let's start with the definition. The following is a slightly paraphrased definition from the APICS or ASCM dictionary. S&OP is a management decision-making process that provides management with the ability to strategically achieve a competitive advantage on a continuous basis. The first important takeaway from this definition is the use of the word management. S&OP is a management decision-making process. What does this mean? It means it's a process for senior management. Think your president, CEO, COO, or general manager in order for them to direct the business. Therefore, the process needs to work for them and provide them a picture or a story of what's going on in the business so that they can direct resources and hold these resources accountable for setting and achieving plans. Simply put, if your management is not running the process, S&OP is falling short. The second important takeaway is the use of the word or the phrase strategically direct. In some definitions, you will also see the phrase develop tactical plans and strategically direct. But both of these are important since S&OP should be the process where these two concepts come together. Strategic direction is important as it involves higher level strategies such as product development, market penetration, product rationalization, and market growth. But we also want to ensure that the execution strategies for demand fulfillment, think make to stock versus make to order or lead time reduction, and how you're actually producing product are all aligned. Strategies should be defined and documented, and the execution aligned with the strategy. So, out of those definitions, our first takeaway on what S&OP is that it's a management process, and secondly, that it links strategy and execution. Well, how does this work? In order to look at that, let's take a look at where S&OP fits in the planning process. You can see the basic planning diagram, one that I've covered in other videos, but it's worth touching on again. If we start at the top, we have the strategic plan. This is typically a 3 to 5 year plan that covers the overall financial objectives, growth, and product strategy, and it's often at a fairly high level, but it may be broken down into individual families. In fact, it actually should be broken down into those individual families in order to link it to the S&OP plan, which really is at the center of this diagram, and that's what we talk about is how does that plan out of the strategic plan come into S&OP? Well, this is where the strategy becomes more specific. The horizon will not be as long, but it should be at a minimum a rolling 12-month plan, and it needs to be at a product family level. I won't get into defining product family here, but there's a good article on our website on product family design. You can follow the link below to read more about this. The other important part about S&OP versus the strategic plan is that it is updated monthly. Typically, you're not doing that with your strategic plan. But for S&OP, you put a plan together, then you work to execute the plan. The following month, you evaluate how did you do. You check your assumptions, you adjust the plan, and then you execute in the following month. That brings us to the two important linkages coming out of the S&OP process, which are the demand plan and the production plan or master schedule. Now, I use the term coming out of the S&OP process, but the astute observer will note that the arrows on these processes are two-way arrows. That means that S&OP both informs and is informed by the demand plan and the production plan and master schedule. This is a very important characteristic of the process. S&OP is a decision-making process, and it relies on the input from the demand plan, but the process also in turn evaluates the accuracy and the effectiveness of the demand plan and provides input back to that demand plan. So the demand plan, which is the sum of the unconstrained demand for the product family, is evaluated as part of the process. The sales organization is typically accountable for this plan, and it will include a forecast as an element of that, but it may also include other inputs such as calculated demand from other sources. The supply plan, in turn, is generated in the S&OP in order to balance to this demand plan, and it's represented by the arrow pointing to the master schedule. The S&OP process should highlight if there's an imbalance between demand and capability in either the short or the long term. If demand exceeds capability, buffers such as lead time, the ability to extend lead time and therefore increase backlog, or inventory, the ability to meet excess demand by using up some of that inventory buffer, or even upside flex for production, can all be used to manage that imbalances. These are strategies, yes, back to the idea of S&OP as a strategic process, that are managed as part of S&OP. By managed, I mean they are documented, understood, and monitored as part of the process. One final note on this diagram. There's an important link between the budget or financial measurements and S&OP. The S&OP family plans should be in units. However, by converting them to dollars, they provide important feedback to the budget process. But hey, once again, you'll notice that the arrow is two ways between the budget or financial plan and S&OP. The budget process provides important directional input to the S&OP process to validate the current year plans are in line with your financial expectations, and the S&OP process, which should extend beyond the annual budget cycle, remember it's a 12-month rolling plan, will also inform the budgeting process for the following year. If you want to read more about this, the link below will bring you to a great article on linking these two plans, the financial plan and the S&OP plan. Finally, to wrap up our discussion on what S&OP is, I'd like to focus on the outcomes of the process. By outcomes, I don't mean the business metrics. I'm going to save that for another video, but rather, if the process is working well, what should you expect, or more correctly, what should your senior executive expect to get out of the process? In order to explore this, I like to put my own executive hat on. What do I get as a business leader? I really like how Richard Lang, who is one of the original thought leaders in S&OP, put it. S&OP is a management's handle on the business. This is a great summary of S&OP as a management process run by and for your senior executive, working for them to manage the business. So, if I'm engaged in the process, what am I expecting as outcomes? Well, there's really 5 that you can look for. I'm going to look at them pretty quickly. First, I'm using the process as a place to set the flow rate for the business. I already talked about this earlier in the balancing between demand and constrained supply and how I'm using my buffers. But I should know how I'm strategically planning on using those buffers, lead time, upside flex, and inventory, to manage imbalances and fluctuations in the difference between supply, lead times, and expected customer lead times. Decisions around changing any of these variables and how the business is managed and our capabilities should be highlighted, monitored, and driven out by the process as we set the flow rate for the business or the family. This dovetails nicely into my second point. If the process is working well, it should provide a clear link between strategy and execution. I've covered this earlier when I talked about this in the planning diagram, but we can extend this further, including new product introductions, product rationalization, and even expanding to new markets. As an executive, I would expect my S&OP plans to be balanced against my long-term strategies, but then also the process will provide feedback on the actions we're taking to get there. Are they working? Do they need to be adjusted? It should also provide feedback on the family's strategies around production and demand fulfillment. Are they working, or should those be adjusted? A great example of this is we expect that reducing lead time will positively impact our demand. The S&OP process should show if we are in fact reducing our lead time first of all, and if we are, is it having the desired impact? Strategy, linked to execution, and informed by feedback. Third, the S&OP process establishes clear accountabilities for your plans. Out of the process as an executive, I should be able to see whether or not we're meeting our plans. As such, that important part of the process is that look back at the previous month, seeing how we did compared to the plan. I should know then who I'm holding accountable for each part of the plan: bookings, shipments, and production. And who then is also responsible for developing and delivering that part of the plan. By establishing these accountabilities and responsibilities, I can better ensure that the organization is aligned to deliver the objectives for the family and ultimately the business. And if it's not happening, I know where to turn. Fourth, I would expect S&OP to be a regular and repeatable management process. Regular in that it should happen monthly. There's a process that leads up to the monthly executive meeting, and people should come prepared to the executive meeting, knowing what is expected and what their role in the process is. The work of running the business happens every day. S&OP is that step back from the fray, so to speak, to evaluate whether we're delivering on what we say we were going to do, and is it working to move us to our longer objectives. And then finally, I would expect measurable results from the process. Ultimately, I'm driving for better business results, such as improved customer service, reduced inventory levels, or reduced expedited freight costs, but I'm also expecting the process to improve the effectiveness of the organization, and this also should be measurable. Again, this comes back to measuring our performance against our plans. Start 1 month out. Can we put a plan together for production and deliver on that plan by the end of the month? If not, why not? Use this look back to drive improvements into our ability to put a plan together for both demand and supply, accounting for all the variability that may be involved in that. How do we improve our assumptions and ultimately our risk management? There's so much more I could cover on this topic of what S&OP is, but this is probably a good place to wrap up. Hopefully you found this informative, you learned something new about S&OP and helped you frame this in the right spot. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. You can subscribe to our channel to be notified when our next video is available, and you can stay up to date on our weekly S&OP videos. Comment below on what you'd like us to cover next. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video. Thanks for watching today's video. Subscribe to our channel for more on implementing S&OP. You can learn more about how DBM can take your process to the next level by visiting our website, www.dbmsys.com. Thank you and take care.